Hey guys, it's Matt. Welcome back to Hardcore Midnight Reality Saturday. We're finally going to get to Frank's second package. Frank's third package is here. I'm still on the second package. Frank's stuff is the ultimate exercise in thinking big. Even if you listen to it and you go, oh, hell no, this is horse shit. It's the ultimate exercise in thinking big. Frank thinks we create everything. On a scale of 1 to 10, like a sliding scale, like double slit and collapse the wave function, that's like a 1 or 2. That's getting in to the belief set that consciousness creates reality and all that. Frank's at 10 out of 10, pinned against the wall at 10 out of 10. We create everything. What about the afterlife? If a certain person goes to a heaven we create that. We create. I don't even have my head wrapped around it. It's going to take me months. But there's an element, I've been incorporating things like this into my overall understanding, let's say, of what this reality is. But I don't think I'm incorporating enough. In other words, I think Frank's stuff is going to wear on me to a degree that I start incorporating more and more of his belief set into what I believe, just as the no consequences people have rubbed off on me as well. But one quick note, allow me to complain about this for 1 minute before we start. I've now had 2 videos blocked in the last 10 days. One, many of you know about, talked about submarines, how ridiculous building these giant submarines are since, say, after 1952, and they're still building them, scheduled to be built through the 2080s. Oh, use of copyright material. Yeah, some old documentary, yeah. The other one recently was, I forget how I titled it, Put Your Dead Grandmother into Your Phone app or something, where these apps can mimic the personality of the dead relatives, and then you can interact with them on your phone or whatever. That was blocked about 5 years ago. Like a fool, I spent an hour trying to research what are YouTube's copyright standards. There must be guidelines somewhere, 2-3 pages, where you could say, oh, if you use less than 5 seconds of a song, it's okay. General guidelines at fair use, nothing. Couldn't find anything. I'm sure it's still the same. And very quickly came to the conclusion, the reason you can't find anything from YouTube itself is because it allows them to do whatever they want to whomever, whenever they want, just different standards channel per channel. And there are some exceptions to this, but generally, if you talk about the types of things that we talk about, they turn that little check to 10 out of 10. So, Matt, you use one little phrase from Michael Jackson Thriller, we're going to block you worldwide. But then what happened? I always have to complain about the same thing. And 20 seconds, guys, before we start on Frank's stuff. That day, of course, a Star Wars video popped up, a movie reviewer that used 40 minutes. I say it every time. 40 minutes of Star Wars with 10 to 15 second clips of the exact movie in 4K littered throughout the video, and that was fine. I doubt it was even demonetized. Look, the standards on this channel in using anything that could be considered copyright material is just off the charts. Soon it'll be just me talking over a black screen. They'll find something in one of Bill's posters that, oh, you can't, he used the Pillsbury Doughboy here in this little tiny graphic. It's unbelievable. Anyway, guys, I just wanted to complain about that. Let me open up Frank's second package. I have a bunch of things underlined. We'll get right to it. Frank's trademark phrase is, I make it all. It's very similar to the Kabbalion, all is mind. I'm going to read bits and pieces of the letter he sent, but mostly it's kind of for me. I'll put all the pieces together the best that I can on the back end, guys, and each individual segment may not make sense on its own, but I'll try to tie it together the best that I can. Again, in summary, before we start, in terms of consciousness creating anything that's physical, the reality not being able to exist without the consciousness of real beings, Frank is 10 out of 10. You cannot get farther along the sliding scale than Frank is in this regard. He says, I make it all. Now, of course, almost everybody listening to me believes that to one degree or another, maybe not 10 out of 10 like Frank. And if you believe that to one degree or another, the hardest part then is that means we have, in a sense, individual realities. How does it all come together? That's something we may never know while we're alive. If Frank makes it all, well, then Matt makes it all. Well, if we could go have breakfast or something at an IHOP, how does it come together then if we're individually making it all? I'm not sure Frank has addressed that in either of his packages. Maybe that's the next package. That's the hardest thing for anybody to do. Many of us will say, yes, this whole reality wouldn't even exist without us. But okay, then if we're creating it, how does it all come together? Or am I Frank? Are we basically the same entity? I'm getting way ahead of ourselves. Let me just read some of that. The reconciliation and bringing the reality bubbles together. How does it seem like it's so shared if it's individually created? That is the hardest part for all of this. And I'll go through Frank's packages again. I don't know if he's has a theory on that or not. We'll see. Sitting here for a minute quietly thinking, guys, this is a very difficult topic to talk about. And for it not to just sound like, for it to come out in a coherent fashion is going to be a real challenge for me here. I mean, even some of Frank's letters, I don't know exactly what he means by this. So I'll do the best I can. And we don't have to have it all figured out today. But the main point from just a minute ago is, why does it seem, or how can it possibly be so shared and consistent, our realities, if the realities are individually created? Here's my favorite example. We always go back to it. Did the Eagles win the Super Bowl in your reality? Oh, they won in mine too. That's amazing. I thought it would be a different Super Bowl winner. No, it's always the same. What time does the sun come up? Okay, why is it so shared if it's individually created? And some people throwing cabbage and lettuce at me. Well, it's obviously then not individually created, Matt, you jackass son of a beach. Okay. That has to be kept on the table, of course. I'm not saying it has to be individually created. I'm saying this is what Frank's saying. This is what ancient texts like the Kabbalion is saying. This is what scientists is even showing us in their little experiments via double slit erase, or whatever it may be. Most of us believe this. So how is it so shared? Now, the first thing I thought about is the rule of opposites and how that axiom so far has never been broken. So how far do we want to apply, or can we apply the rule of opposites? It's never been applied this far. So can you apply it to reality itself? Is everything here important backwards? So if it seems that the reality is out there and it's fixed and you're just interpreting it, you're living in it, and the Eagles won the Super Bowl in everybody's reality, and leaves are green. Hey, person on the street, what color's the sky? Blue, of course, you jerk. Oh, it's blue for me too, isn't it? We have so much in common. The person just runs away. Run away! He's just running away from you. What do you mean? You're surprised it's blue for you too. What are you, some sort of conspiracy asshole? It's all out there, right? Reality's out there. It's fixed. But we know per what we've studied, we know it's not fixed. We know it's fluid. And as time goes on, it gets more and more fluid. And as time and your research into what reality is goes further and further, you start to come around to Frank's point of view. Maybe baby steps, maybe double slit experiment. Oh, clap the waves, fucking triggered. I'm triggered by that. Clap the waves. But then you get farther and farther down, and Frank comes along at 10 out of 10 and says, I create everything. So to summarize this section, rule of opposites, it seems like everything's fixed, that reality's out there, and you're just here temporary. You're in it. It exists on its own. If rule of opposites, if you believe it applies, then it's not that. And the opposite of that is it's nothing out there at all. You create it. If you believe the rule of opposites is an axiom, then we can basically, we'll end the video down. Now let's shut the whole channel down. We're done. It's a rule of opposites. Never been broken. Means it seems so out there and fixed and on its own, which means I create it. Done. What's on television? Let's go watch Me TV. Here, Frank writes, the biggest point being, there is nothing physical short of me creating it. In other words, the no thing or the abyss. It's difficult for others. By the way, if I read a sentence or two from Frank and you don't understand, there'll be a lot of things like that. I'll try to tie it together the best I can. Frank's notion of if we don't create, the alternative is the abyss. The alternative is nothing, and that's far less palatable to a creative being than creating even the sort of shit that we're living in now. It's a very difficult concept that might take a while to get out. Frank writes, the ideas that I hear from others stay pretty physically based. Terms like higher self, realms. Frank would even call higher self physically based. Realms, heaven, where we came from before birth, and many others just rely on a somehow generated other condition. Of course, no need to go all the way at once. Thanks, Frank. We're not even going to get halfway there today, my man. So maybe getting out of this and moving to a better place after death can be another creation of the individual. Tony said something like that. Don't get mad at me. This is just, we think big and we keep all things on the table. Tony said, a Christian spent the whole life believing in Jesus in the heart. You will go to heaven. You will be with Jesus and God. You, in some way, you are responsible. Don't get mad at me. We leave all big thinking is left. All are welcome. We don't take anything off the table here. That's what Tony said. Said you'll go to heaven, but basically you manifest. You create it yourself, and you might be there for the equivalent of what we know of as thousands of years. At some point, you'll go. This isn't the final train stop. This is 1,000 train stops away from the final train stop. Frank writes, the Subgeniuses Gang's books showed me that volumes of verbiage can create anything, and the crazier the concepts, the more believable they become. Now, I don't know what Frank means by the Subgeniuses Gang's books, but the first thing that pops in my mind here is the Madame Blavatsky. And overly complicated, verbose tomes like Isis Unveiled, to me, it's just nonsense. That's why most of them are the full ossifers. And that's why it needs to be a half page. So Frank here is saying, let's see if we can, well, Frank will clarify to me later. He's saying, whatever, this gang's, they write these books. And again, for Madame Blavatsky, and insert Aristotle, insert anything, Plato, Aristotle, the writings of Immanuel Kant, Schopenhauer, the philosophers, and there's millions and millions and millions of pages if you add it all up. He's saying this volume of verbiage can create anything, and the crazier the concepts, the more believable they become. So how did we deal with that in the past? The conspiracy generation machine, the reality generation machine. You expect to go do the research like our friend Alan, who passed away 10 years ago in Florida. You go expect to find all the research in the world on inner Earth. Oh, no, there's a whole world, Dyson spheres. What have we talked about many times here? Somehow the reality, well, we're going to evolve that, right, Frank? The reality will show you what you're so interested in. Well, we should have been a little bit more precise in our language. The reality is there's nothing here. You're creating, Frank would say, you're creating every breadcrumb. If you're interested in inner Earth, what the hell, learn to speak, Matt, what's wrong with you? Then it's not the reality, Matt, stop talking about it, Frank would say, in terms of like a thing, like some thing like Jabba the Hutt sitting in a chair trying to order a Domino's pizza. It's not a thing, it's you. I'm so interested in inner Earth. Well, the reality is maybe some sort of machine that's part of our creation that will reflect back what we're so interested in and what we're so excited about. Dark City, the movie, comes to mind. The strangers could they could change realities, somebody's individual reality and the look of a city, but based on machines underneath the city. The machines reflected back the tuning that they wanted. That's what this reality as a machine, say, would do to us. That will, if Lucy really wants caramel, we say caramel or caramel, if she wants those chocolates and she loves them, that's the chocolates that will continue to come down the conspiracy generation machine. So in summary on this first point, if anybody's a little bit lost, to put it in the most simplest of ways, we all know the Tartarian mud flood research, right? Did it seem to come out of the blue about 10 years ago? Everybody missed it. Billions of tons of mud and covering this and Matt, government's covered up, though you should know that better than anybody. Okay, the governments are covering up, but just regular people, we all missed it. Structures that couldn't be constructed. Nobody even realized nothing could be built until about 10 or 15 years ago. No, Frank would say maybe it was planted, it was put into our community. The creeps know how this reality generation machine works. Whatever it was, it got our attention. Oh, the most powerful creative beings. And then it became Lucy and the Chocolate Factory and giant maps and this and that. And it started to feed us because of our creative interest in it. But the people that do this analysis think it's out there. It's on its own. Matt, whether I'm here or not, or our types of people, the Tartarian, the architecture exists on its own. Frank would say that's ridiculous. It doesn't exist on its own. The proof is in the pudding. We got more and more evidence as we started to look at it. Not because we just happen to just find it now. What a coincidence. And to support Frank's position, what a coincidence that just came out of the blue. 12 years ago, this whole empire had taken over the world and structures and everybody, we just missed it. You just missed it. You didn't, it just was gigantic, impossible to build. Governments covered it up. I know. Yeah. And then it got more and more popular. And every time everybody looked, anytime anybody looked, I can't talk, then it showed us more. Look at these big maps. Look at these doorways that's for giants. All this bullshit. It started to show us. Frank would say that's the reality/conspiracy generation machine. It's not just out there on its own. The creative people that were so interested in it created it, Frank would say. But with a little help from creeps. They know how this reality works. They'll float a blurry image. We talked about this 5, 6, 7 years ago. Float a concept. And they need us to bring that blurry concept into reality, to make it into 4K or 8K. We are the emulsifier to harden the cement on the creepy reality they want. And we've fallen for it every step so far. Here Frank is talking about, we would say the people around us, our family and friends that believe the news. They never come around to our positions. They don't see through the trick. They fall for it. We become quite frustrated. He's basically saying here, where's the part? No need to bash their games. Every real spiritual being here is playing a game. The game, your best friend, it might be the same spiritual being you are. Stop calling them NPCs, Matt. Stop calling them organic portals. Their game may be to fall for it. It's an immortal being, trillions and hundreds of billions and trillions of years old. Its game here may be, I want to believe the news. I want to believe this was all. I want to fear death. I want to believe there's this wonderful thing called voting. That's their games. He said, Matt, we need to stop bashing their games. That's what they chose to play here. It's not your game. You're not a winner and they're a loser. It's just a different form of game. Leave them alone, Frank would say. Stop calling them names. Could be the same exact creative spiritual being that you are. Now, the last part here is probably the most important. I didn't even read it. No need to bash their games, especially if not offering a better game for them to play. And this is a great point to our truth research. Are we offering them a better game? Am I offering my friend Tony a better game? Oh, come over to our side, and you can have the 5-year dark night of the soul too, and not want to get out of bed and become depressed. Now, we have to come out of it. Now, we're not all in this situation. A lot of people come to me with the woe is me, and they're so stressed, and they're so Cush and Avery, and I go back and say, you need to see the wonder in this reality when you wake up to it. My little dark night of the soul, and I hate that stupid term, that little depression, it was only like a year. It was only, and part of it, Matt, you had the channel, you had people that you were talking to that that were interested in what you were. No doubt about this helped me. But now I see that if the channel went away, whatever, the wonder of it would never go away. The things that I notice, the incredible aspect of it, the comedy of it, it's not Dark Knight. It's incredible to me. And all the emails that come into me, I'm depressed. I can't take this reality. That's your part to the work. You have a lot of work to do. This is the most fascinating, incredible thing. This is the most incredible experience in the entire universe. Wake up and see it that way. And if there is any downside to coming to our level of realization, is that you really can't go back. And I've observed many people trying to go back, telling me they're going back. Matt, I can't take this reality, whatever. And I've seen different degrees of going back. There's many that come here and have these types of discussions like what Frank is putting forth, and they don't like it. They love the fear addiction. They go back to the SGT report and the X22 report. They go back to the economic. They want the fear. They don't like this part two, the work and the wonder of it and how incredible it is. That's not exciting. That's not the drug of choice. So they go back to that first grade truth. And Frank would say if that's the game they want to play, that's fine. Let them go back. That's fine. But there's others that try to go back into the matrix like it never happened. Like any degree of seeing through the trick, they want to go back. In the movie The Matrix, Cypher got the mind wipe from Agent Smith. He said, I don't want to remember nothing. I want to be famous. I don't think it happens too often, but there's a percentage of us that arrive where we are and they want to go completely back into the matrix, like it never happened. Just go back into the corporate world. Oh yes, next Tuesday's before Christmas is the progressive dinner. I knew somebody they called it a progressive dinner. They used to drive around to different people's homes and have a different appetizer and a drink or whatever. That's good. Everybody has a drink here and then they go drive, have a drink here, and then that's a really good idea. Should rent a bus, you jerks. And they'd have we have a little shrimp cocktail. And look at the kids, look at it, look at the baby, look at the baby, look at the baby. They want to just go right back into the matrix, and that's not going to work. If you've come this far into truth and you see that there's a trick being played here, there's no pill to take. I mean, you can go back and be a good, responsible parent and not bring your kids into this and let them live the law. Kids shouldn't be burdened with the things that we talk about, but a small percentage try to go completely back. And sorry, that's not going to work. Here, Frank writes, so you can be tricked, you can be deceived and trapped by your own creations made earlier in the game. He writes, accepting and agreeing to created opponents creates a reality not of your direct creation. Accepting and agreeing to created opponents creates a reality not of your direct creation. Well, Frank, I bet I could get you to come off this position just a little bit based on your own writing. The creeps, the minions, the not milk itself is, in a way, us agreeing to a created opponent. This is a role player here in this reality. I mean, it says creates a reality not of your direct creation. No, not milk is likely, Frank. If this is the game we're playing and waking up to it, not milk likely is a game of our own creation. And not a negative and an essential role player here, because a reality of coconuts, palm trees, and giant bottles of overflowing lube doesn't get anyone anything. It's about overcoming issues and actually learning. And learning still triggers part of the truth community. For some reason, you say it's a school. Oh my God, it's a school. Matt, fuck Matt. Sorry. Inside the package, Frank has little 3x5 cards and notes on bright yellow or green or whatever Post-it notes. And I assume what's on this stuff is the most important. Here one says, maybe we find each other using physical vibrations. So similar would find similar. Like attracts like. The physical in its parts could communicate a whole, so two people would know similar things. The first part got my attention, and I thought, right when I read, maybe we find each other using physical vibrations, maybe this is actually, as low as this place is, it might be a real facilitator or the grounds for our type of being to actually come together. And maybe the sex act, the smelly sex act just popped into my mind. Maybe we struggle with coming together in the spiritual realm. But this is a way, if you can ignore all the bullshit and all the horrors of this place and nasty governments and politicians and just absolute corrupt individuals and all maybe this is the place, I mean, based on I don't know why it just popped in my head. And I'm not saying this is my belief set. I'm just doing stream of consciousness, guys. What comes to me as I read Frank's stuff here, maybe we find each other using physical vibrations. Can beings like us find each other more easily or come together in this sort of place where we can't come together anywhere even as close as we can here? And we put up with the bad. So in other words, the first thing I think of, when Matt locks himself away as a recluse, and Matt, do you want to go do this? No. Matt, you want to be on this podcast? No. Matt, what you want to do? I want to stack bricks. I want to just go down with Fifi Addy Girl. I would just lock myself away and then start right about 7 o'clock, first IPA, whatever. Then Matt, the whole purpose of the reality maybe so we actually can find each other here where we can't in the spiritual realms as easily as we can here. I don't know. I mean, call it horseshit if you want. I do stream of consciousness based on what Frank puts on his cards here. Maybe that's possible. If that's the case, me being a recluse here is not good. I'm not taking advantage of what the reality's for. Matt, you want to be on this podcast? No. Here's a card I found that relates to what we're talking about. It's in giant font on a 3x5 card. It must be important. We find each other through the universes we create that have enough similarities that then can resonate. There should be a whole MIT college class just as one card. You just hold it up. We find each other through the universes we create that have enough similarities that then can resonate. People have found each other through this channel, for example, because we think alike. So would we even be able to find similar individuals if we didn't have to navigate all this horseshit, or this place was just coconuts, palm trees, and lube? Is it easier to find each other in a nasty, hardcore place? What does a nasty, evil place do? It segments people into camps pretty quickly, and you know who you stand with. All the shit here, I've always deep down believed, and I couldn't really put into words. I can do a little bit better now in this regard. All the shit here is by design and necessary. This card here, Frank, isn't very cheery. I'm glad I didn't see this one last night before going to bed. If spirit has any physical properties, we're doomed as free beings. Connected to physical is a chain by belief or by agreement. Okay, Frank, but per that last part, it's not as bad as it sounds. By belief or by agreement, you wrote yourself. So it leads me back to, what does the not milk do all day? 24/7, 365, like the Terminator. Never takes a vacation, never takes a day off. What does it do? It manipulates and presents its trick. I mean, another way I've said it over the years, you may have heard this once or twice, it gets up in your business. It gets up in your face and gets you to believe things about yourself that really aren't you. It gets you to think you're this when you're not. That's all it does. I mean, that's all it does, and it never takes a break. So connected to physical is a chain by belief or by agreement. But whose belief and whose agreement? So if we see that we are in no way physical, and this is just a trick and an illusion, by our own belief and by agreement, we're not doomed, right? I mean, maybe it's that simple. Maybe Tony says, a lot, he would say, what you believe you're going to get at death, what you manifest is what, if all this bullshit, there's a lot of bullshit that could come in the astral and places. You can get stuck in this and that. You believe in certain things, you will manifest it. You believe as a Tibetan, whatever, the Bardos are coming in 40 days of lights, and Captain Picard, when he's taken by the Romulans, there were 4 lights. If you think that shit's coming, you'll manifest it. You'll get it. So he writes, by belief or by agreement. So what we're doing now is freeing ourselves from those chains, because if you, Frank, by your own cards here, we create everything. Everything stems from us. So that might be the absolute heart of the not milk trick. Going into the moment of death, if you believe in any way that you are a physical being, and you will carry the form of your body as you enter death and into the Bardos or whatever, that might be just enough to chain you here. So the first part, if spirit has any physical properties, we're doomed. But who's it up to? Did spirit, I would assume it didn't always, if it has physical properties, it didn't always have physical properties. Per our own, what we believe we are here, we potentially assigned physical properties to spirit. You think Not-Nil can do it itself? You think Not-Nil can do it itself? You think little creatures like Alec Baldwin and Lady Gaga, you think they can do it? No, we have to do it to ourselves. Maybe the ultimate definition of dooming ourselves here is, per our own doing, assigning a degree of physicality to spirit. Frank says, we do that, we're doomed, we're screwed. But per what he writes at the end, by belief or by agreement. So part 2, the work. If you, in any way you believe you've assigned a degree of physical to spirit in terms of what you really are, remove it. Why? How do I do that? Just remove it. Just work. You don't have to do any work. There's nobody grading you or anything. Just remove it. Why? Humpty Dumpty. Because you said so. And you carry the belief that you are not this place. This place is a trick to get you to think you are Matt and you are the owner of 2 cats and you're a person that chops wood. That's the nature of its trick. And maybe Frank has summed it up better than it's ever been summed up in history. Maybe those philosophers are rolling around in their grave, rolling around. If spirit has any physical properties, we're screwed. Well, Not-Nil can't just assign a physical property. We would have had to have done that. So that's a good point. I'm going to ponder this in the bathtub all week long. have I assigned any physical properties to spirit? And if we have, to remove them, guess who could do it? You and me. Here's another card here, and this is just to prove they're cards. Hear that? They're cards. To create all, stay in the present moment or stay in present time. Frank, Pootie Tang Award. Folks, if Frank can get a Pootie Tang Award, anybody can. So when you get one, don't be so upset. To create all, stay in the present time. Now, it's Pootie Tang Award, but it is worth talking about. What does the Not Milk endlessly try to do to us? It's part of its trick. Put us in the past. Put our mindset in the past. Worrying about the future. Is that its tricks with weather? It was, Wednesday we did have that line of thunderstorms that came through. Oh, some winds kicked up to 40-some miles an hour. But for days before, it was getting us to worry. Well, there's the louche aspect, the worry, the fear. Oh, how bad is this line of thunderstorms going to be? But what does that do as well related to this card here? Puts us in the future. What's going to happen on Wednesday? What happened in the past? Frank's saying you cannot create unless you are very focused on the present. Create meaning affect all of reality. So Frank, it's a Pootie Tang Award honorable mention. But you're close, Frank. One more card like this, and you're going to get a big fat Pootie Tang Award. And to take a 45-second break or respite from our hardcore, mentally taxing reality conversation. I haven't done this for a year. If anybody's new, what is Pootie Tang Award? People are still like, what's Not Milk? They just come in here a few months ago. They still struggle with that. Now I'm done in about 30 seconds. The movie Pootie Tang, the ridiculous movie, the first 20 minutes is hilarious. Then it just gets horrible. There's 3 friends of Pootie. One friend just repeats the obvious or repeats what's already been said. So Chris Rock, Pootie's friend, is, Pootie is so fly with the ladies. He's so good with girls. Pootie hasn't paid for a drink in a bar since 1962. And then the other friend will say, I saw Pootie's so fly with the ladies. There's been 5 girls that proposed and presented a ring to him. And then the other friend, I got something to add. Wait, what is it? Pootie's good with girls too. That didn't go. It wasn't as good as the movie. I don't write comedy movies, but he just repeats the obvious. So if you come into a place like this, you know the hardcore pipe hitting people that are here in terms of getting to the bottom of how this reality works. Half the shit they send to me, I don't even understand. You state the obvious here, you're going to get the Pootie Tang Award. Okay, this part of Frank's letter I wanted to talk to you guys about for like months now. It's been sitting on my desk, Frank, for months. He says, here's a practical example. Allow me to take, Matt, your rooster example issue. Now, guys, 30 seconds or less to fill everybody in. It was a segment of my book. I was like 3 years ago now. It's been a while. This person down the road got a rooster. And when it was young or when he first got it, whatever reason, it would, whatever it does, cock-a-doodle-doo like all day long, every 10 seconds. And it bothered the crap out of me. Not really for me as much as I'm sure it's bothering the heck out of the neighbors down there, but they don't have the balls to go knock on the door. It's ridiculous for me to say something because I'm way down the road. You hear it in the distance. And again, so I'm not going to, but it bothered the heck out of me. Not, the rooster itself didn't bother me. This is why it was part of a reality conversation we had per a book chapter. If the rooster was running around as a wild bird or something, it wouldn't bother me at all. There's crows here. There's things that make all sorts of sounds. It was the human element that bothered me. And it was a new neighbor. Somebody comes in new, you son of a beach. It's the inconsideration, the human element and the inconsiderate neighbor that just, I'll just get a rooster. The neighbors don't even care, don't even think for a second what would the neighbors think, or don't even, that's what really bugged me. It wasn't the rooster itself, and it took me a few months to understand this. This rooster, it doesn't bother me anymore, and it's not, I don't know what roosters do as they get old or whatever, and I need to wrap this up, I understand that. It's not, I hear it a few times a day, and even if it was hours and hours a day, I'm over it. It wouldn't bother me. It was part of my part 2 of the work. Obviously, there's a lot more to do than getting over a rooster, but it was the human element. This person moves in and just gets a rooster and doesn't give one shit about the neighbors. So that's why the damn sound bothered me so much. And I came to grips with it. It doesn't, but okay, geez, sorry to be so long-winded. So Frank says, per your rooster issue, Matt, I would ask you, this is a great exercise, I would ask you to describe clearly the emotion contained when you were upset over the crowing. What was the emotion that was bubbling up? Could you describe it, Matt? Then, when it can be described by you clearly, the anger, the emotion, exactly what was the effect it had upon you when you could talk about it, how you were affected, I would say, recall an incident. This is the key. Recall an incident when you caused those same feelings in another. Now, this search can take a moment. We've lived lives a long time. You've probably done the exact same thing in a way to somebody else. So he says, it's something that you forgot, for example, causing those same feelings in another. It doesn't matter if the memory is real or feels dreamlike. Oh, you could create it. By putting a date to the memory, it will make the memory picture get more solid. So basically, Frank's like, even if you don't really have one, think of anything that happened in your past and kind of extrapolate it a bit. Put a date on it. Smell it. Feel it. You're back there in high school when you did that to somebody else. When you can clearly recall doing exactly to another what is bugging the crap out of you now, it will stop bothering you. We can't be affected without first having done it ourselves. There's a lot more here in the letter, guys, but I think this whole segment on Frank's nothing in the abyss, I mean, this is an hour-long conversation in of itself. We'll have to do this some other time. But he tells this story. He used to drive people around. When I was driving, I regularly had a guest for 15 minutes or so to the airport or wherever, often for various reasons. A certain lady, for example, could be crying, a death, family issues, leaving a child behind at college, whatever it may be. It seemed like he's saying, more than you would think, were physically or emotionally upset, and Frank could see that immediately. I would have them, and if they were amenable to talking, he's saying, I would then have them imagine their entire life's events being woven into a tapestry. Imagine it all being woven into a tapestry. And they're thinking at this time, they're thinking, what sort of cab driver is there? What sort of driver is this? Whatever. He wasn't a cab driver, but he drove people, I think, for a hotel. He said, I would have them tell me, weave your whole life into a tapestry. Then I would have them tell me some fun moments, and they'd talk about it. And then those fun moments that have been woven into the tapestry. Then I made a bet with them. I bet if I offered and I had the ability, the godlike ability to pull out all the sad moments that you've woven into the tapestry, and I could just take them away, and you'd lose those memories, I bet them that they would demand that they stay in. And they'd say, absolutely do not remove it, even though I call this a negative, or I call this a pain in my life, or a horrible experience. And people talk bad about it. But if you say to somebody, well, I can pull it out. Would you like me to pull it out of your life? They would say no. They deep down, we all sense, this is Matt talking, that all of it here is necessary. They would all want to leave it alone. It gets back to that Star Trek movie. Star Trek The Final Frontier, I've talked to you guys about many times. Spock's half-brother, Sybok, whatever, he hijacks the Enterprise, and he gets the crew to go along with it because he has like a personal brainwashing session. He removes their pain somehow. Each session, you see it with Spock and Dr. McCoy, they confront their worst fears and somehow, and their most horrible experiences in life and greatest pain. And with McCoy, if you've seen the movie, you can see him over his father's deathbed, and he does the wrong things or doesn't know about the treatment that now exists, and the treatment was available, his father would have lived, and he has regrets and guilt over it, and somehow Sybok takes all of this away. So everybody on the Enterprise's deep-rooted pain and guilt is removed through these many brainwashing sessions. You've heard me talk about this many times, so I'll wrap it up, but it's gigantic truth in movies, and related to what Frank's saying here, they go to do it to Kirk. Kirk, you'll still be the same Kirk, but you'll be different. You'll be so at ease. You'll want to go along with Sybok. Let him remove your pain. And he's, no, I need my pain. It makes me who I am. I want my pain. It's a part of me. And Frank, I don't know how many people he talked to about this. Let me weave it all into a tapestry, all the bad times, and this person left you, and you didn't talk to one of your kids didn't talk to you for 5 years. Weave it all in, and now let me remove it. No. Instinctively, they know they need it. Deep down, they know it's an essential part of this life and experience. It was needed for the movie for all of them to willingly want to give up their pain. Where all the Enterprise crew, Scotty and McCoy, they let Sybok remove their pain. That was needed for the movie, for Kirk to have his grand moment of, no, don't get in my head. I want my pain. It's part of who I am. I need my pain. The truth drop, of course, it's needed here in this life experience. But what Frank would say is the whole Enterprise, if they were real beings, they wouldn't have gone along with that. Nobody wants their pain removed. As Frank was talking to those people riding in the car, if it's woven into the tapestry, let me take it away. No, do not. They know instinctively and that means it's necessary. Again, in the movie, it had to be that way in the movie for Kirk to have that grand part of, I want my pain. I need my pain. But it gets back to all these YouTube channels that, woe is us, we're screwed, we would have never agreed to the trauma, we would have never agreed to come in here. By the way, maybe it's like Severance, we'll get into that, where you higher self or another part of you put the aspect of you in here expecting to be traumatized. So the higher self or the greater, which I don't have any other word to describe it, folks. Tony says, it's you, you're it, you're not a little pinky, it's all the same. But the other part is not here. You're taking one for the team. You're experiencing the pain and the suffering and the woe and the trauma because your higher self potentially didn't want to do it. It's very similar to the Severance concept. By the way, last night's episode was absolutely horrible. I don't know what they were thinking. Oh, let's hope, most of the second season been decent. Let's hope this doesn't going to be intentionally destroyed. It may be. I mean, it's too close to home in terms of a reality truth drop, Severance. Maybe they're saying we need to destroy it. Too many people are paying attention. Too many people are talking about it. Maybe, because it was just horrible. But I'm sorry. So we're talking about, the YouTube channels. We would have never agreed to this trauma. We would never have come. We must be trapped. We would have never agreed. Well, you might have done it to yourself. First off, that's the Severance / higher self concept we'll talk about soon. I told Ghost we do another whole thing on Severance. It's very soon, which we'll do next week potentially. And there's a few, I've talked about Severance a few times, but there's some big things I've missed or I didn't even get to that I wanted to talk about. But everybody crying that we would have never agreed to come here. We must certainly be trapped. We would have never subjected ourselves to this sort of trauma. And we're so limited here in terms of the senses only providing 1%. We don't know who we were before we were born. The brain is governed down. We're so limited here. All we can deal with is what's right in front of us. Frank says, weave all the good times and bad times in a tapestry. What if I have the magical ability to remove the bad? No, that it tells you right there. We wouldn't give them up. Okay. And I'm not talking about if some child was in a basement for 5. I'm not talking about those types of situations. Everybody always does that to me. Well, Matt, if you're so right, what about the child from age 7 to 14 was locked in a basement in chains and was this and that and this and that? Don't give me those. I can't address that. Okay. There are different types of entities here. Melvin and Bezzo, are they the same as you spiritually? Are they the same? No. There could be, all men are created equal, it says, right? There could be different types of entities here. Don't give me that 1 in a million hardcore example. Okay, that does not throw out the theory that essentially we agreed to experience some sort of trauma. And again, we'll never know, but what is the proof right in front of us that nobody would give up their pain? And so right now, I'm sure there's people going, I'd give it up. Really? It's easy for you to just say that or just throw that out because it can never be removed. You in a way, you want the certain type of pain or trauma to go away. But if you were presented with the actual ability, whether it be a medical procedure or whatever, to remove it, 99% at that point, knowing that it could really be removed, would not do it. You can throw out all you want now because it can't be done. That's easier said, but I guess we'll wrap it up, guys. There's a whole bunch of stuff, more Frank stuff. We'll try to do Frank stuff once a month. And it's been, I really plan on making this video about a month ago. And part of it is all the crap that the Not Milk and its minions and its creeps been throwing at us. Every time I turn, I haven't even looked at the news. I haven't even looked to see if Duluth is still with us And wouldn't it be, if certain Midwestern cities no longer exist, I guess this would be an inappropriate reality conversation. So let me check. I'll be right back. No, main headlines: staffing cuts at the Social Security office, and more insight into what potentially happened to Gene Hackman and his wife. When these are the top news stories, according to the U.S. press in the world, things aren't so bad. It's pretty darn good. Go take a walk or something. You want to put a little things in perspective, guys? I'm not going to use any names. I'm going to err on the 1,000,000% on the side of being very careful here. Who knows if they're going through his records or his emails, what they can do in countries like Turkey. I'm not going to say a name, nothing. There's somebody from Turkey, won't even mention one letter of the name, who's participated, say helped us out, shared insight about the earthquake. He defamed somebody and he's going to jail for 2 years. Yeah, starting like in a few days. Through defamation. I'm not going to give any specifics of the case. Turkey has these things called insult laws. And if it's this person was, let's just say, selling a product that was, well, I'm not even going to say anything. Then the person that's been with us, of course, is being 100% honest, said some things online, said don't buy the product, it's a fraud, blah, blah, blah. Insult laws, 2 years in jail. And so you think you have it bad? Again, the amount of, not just the rest of the world, we complain here in the U.S. or Canada, we should be ashamed of ourselves. The trauma of past generations, of many parts of the rest of the world right now, and we're complaining. Part 2 of the work, get that screwed on right. You should be jumping for joy every day and taking advantage of every single wonder and ridiculous comedy, the divine comedy. Biggest truth. Why is it, if it's about hell, why is it called the divine comedy? Because the whole Dante Alighieri, it's a gigantic truth drop, just like most things in this reality. Thank you, Frank, and thanks for everybody for listening.